Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of Milestone Museum. Here at Milestone Museum, we take a look back at all the different anniversaries that are celebrating their 10, 20, etc., all the way to the 100th anniversaries for movies, television, pop culture, etc. Starting off in 2016, we have the movies Hail Caesar, Pride Prejudice Zombies, and The Choice. Hail Caesar is the Coen brothers' love letter and satire of 1950s Hollywood, starring Josh Brolin and George Clooney. It's now remembered as a quirky, star-studded look at the studio system. I didn't catch that one in theater, but I did catch the next one, Pride, Prejudice, and Zombies. This genre-bending adaptation of Seth Graham Smith's novel combined Jane Austen with the undead. While it didn't lighten up box office, it has since found a niche as a fun, stylistic cult favorite. Now, when I watched this movie, I really thought it was going to be more zombies. I didn't really know Pride and Prejudice, but I do know the story now. But I was hoping for a little bit more zombies, or at least the zombies to be zombies. And next we have The Choice, released February 5th, 2016. For the romance fans, as Nicholas Sparks' adaptation premiered, following the familiar but popular formula of star-crossed lovers in the American South. That came just in time for Valentine's Day in 2016. Moving on to TV shows, we have Animals, released February 5th. HBO's unique animated adult comedy and the downtrodden creatures of New York City, pigeons, rats, bedbugs, made its debut. Now, this was an interesting show because it was just showing the animals, but the voices behind those animals were like really famous actors. They were just, it was pretty cool. I did check it out for like the first couple episodes, but wasn't really my cup of tea. But it was definitely worth trying it out. Video games celebrating their 10th year anniversary. We got XCOM 2, one of the most critically acclaimed tactical strategy games of all time. It flipped the script on the original, placing players in a role of resistance force fighting back against a alien occupied Earth. Sounds interesting. We also have Digimon Story, Cyber Life, February 2nd. The fan favorite RPG made its Western debut on PS4 and Vita, often cited as one of the best games in the Digimon franchise. Digimon. I think, yeah, I had a couple friends that were into it, but personally, I wasn't into it. It kind of reminded me of Pokemon in a way. Pokemon, Digimon, kind of sounds like the same. We also have American Truck Simulator, the strangely therapeutic and wildly popular simulator launch, allowing players to haul freight across the sun-drenched highways of California and Nevada. Ooh, I know where they were coming to and from. I bet they're coming to and from Vegas. I've done that stretch of road. There's this cool little spot. I think it's in Barstow or near Barstow where it's like an alien hub and they have like beef jerky there. And it's a really cool spot to check out next time we go into Vegas from California. Or if you're coming from Vegas to California, check it out. Next up, we also have Crypt of the Necro Dancer, the rhythm based dungeon crawler arrived on PS4 and Vita, cementing its place as an indie darling. Speaking of the PS4, I saw this post recently that Sony is recently ending it's recently like stopping the PS4 after 10 years. It's had a good run. We'll see if that's true. Music, We have Elton John, Wonderful Crazy Nights. Sir Elton released his 32nd studio album, which was praised for its upbeat classic rock and roll energy. Oh yeah, he's a sir. He's a knight. Oh, to be knighted. That'd be so cool. I'm really into knights right now because I just watched Knight of the Seven Kingdoms. Sir Duncan the Tall, an egg. Great show. Give it a try. Also, The Cult, Hidden City, released February 5th. The legendary rock band released their 10th studio album, concluding a trilogy that began with 2007's Born Into This. I do like me some Cult, especially like after or in the 80s. They had some good stuff. Oh, I like Into the Trees. That's a good one. Letter to Eileen. That's another one. And of course, Boys Don't Cry. A lot of good stuff. I haven't listened to that album though from 2016. Moving on to 2006, we have the release of Final Destination 3, February 10th. It famously turned a roller coaster into a source of pure anxiety for an entire generation. Yeah, I remember that one. I'll never forget that scene with the tanning beds and those two girls got stuck in there. Oof. Or even when that guy was just ordering food and he was in the drive-thru and some blade hit him in the back of the head. It was crazy. I think the craziest one was probably like in the weight room, that guy getting his arms cut off by the sword. Oof. Final Destination's not for the weak. And we also have Curious George releasing February 10th. The animated feature starring Will Ferrell as the man in the yellow hat brought the classic book character to a new audience, featuring a now iconic soundtrack by Jack Johnson. Okay. I didn't know Will Ferrell played in it. I bet Johnson would have liked that. She said she liked Curious George. Speaking of Johnson, she also mentioned this movie in week 5, The Pink Panther. Steve Martin took over the role of the Inspector Clausio. I may have said that wrong, but d- despite mixed reviews, it was a massive commercial hit and introduced checkmate as a mid 2000s catchphrase. Catch checkmate. I can hear it. I can hear Steve Martin doing a French accent already. I think yeah. I seen like clips of it, and he definitely had a French accent, I think. Maybe. Firewall, a classic Harrison Ford tech thriller where he plays a security expert forced to rob his own bank to save his family. I haven't seen that one, but I do like me some Harrison Ford. Might have to add it to the list. TV shows, we have the 2006 Winter Olympics opening ceremony. The 20th Winter Games began in Turin, Italy. This week in 2006 was the final countdown to one of the most watched sporting events of the decade. We also had the People's Choice Awards. This week saw the height of the award season buzz, with shows like Grey's Anatomy and Lost both in their prime, dominating the cultural conversation. I think Grey's Anatomy is still going on to this day. Go Grey's Anatomy. Lost was pretty good. I just watched the first season, and then it got really weird. But no, the first season was cool. And we also had The Cutting Edge, Going for the Gold. This ABC family original movie, a sequel to the 1992 cult classic, premiered during this week, becoming a nostalgic staple for figure skating fans. The Cutting Edge. ABC Family, they had some. That was a cool little station that they had back in the day. I don't think they have it anymore, but it's definitely worth looking into. Video games. We have Resident Evil Deadly Silence. This enhanced port of original Resident Evil for the Nintendo DS celebrated the franchise's 10th anniversary in 2006, meaning in 2026, the specific version will be 20 years old. Still haven't played any Resident Evil games. They were really scary for me. Siren 2 was also released on February 9th. The sequel is the terrifying Japanese stealth horror game Forbidden Siren, launching in Japan during this window, further cementing the J-horror gaming trend. Oh, they like horror games. Okay, good for them. Music, we have Belle and Sebastian, A Life Pursuit, February 6th. And In Flames released Come Clarity. And we also had the Grammy Awards hype. The 48th annual Grammy Awards took place on February 8th, 2006. This week was defined by U2 winning Album of the Year for How to Dismantle an Atomic Bomb, and Kelly Clarkson for her first two Grammys for Since You've Been Gone and Breakaway. Since you've been gone, I can't breathe for the first time. That's a good one. Pop culture, we have Super Bowl 40. The Pittsburgh Steelers defeated the Seattle Seahawks. The halftime show featured the Rolling Stones performing on a massive stage shaped like their iconic tongue and lips logo. Recently saw the Rolling Stones in concert last year at SoFi, and they're still rocking. They're going great. We also had the Wait, He Did What moment on February 11th, 2006. Vice President Dick Cheney accidentally shot a fellow hunter during a quail hunt, a story that completely took over the news cycle and late night comedy for weeks. Well, that's got to be a very interesting story. I don't think I've ever had quail. Anybody in the comments has had quail? Let me know how it tastes. If it's more like a chicken or like a turkey. Is it good? I'm interested. Here we are in 1996. Movies, we have The White Squall, Ridley Scott's coming-of-age adventure featuring Jeff Bridges, just entered its full week in the theaters. It remains a nostalgic touchstone for those who remember the 90s obsession with teen boys at sea dramas. That was an obsession in the 90s? Teen boys at sea. Black Sheep, which was released February 2nd. This comedy classic reunited SNL legends Chris Farley and Dave Spade. While critics at the time compared it unfavorable to Tommy Boy, it has since become a beloved cult classic for Farley's physical comedy. I did watch that one. I think it was about 2 years ago, and it was pretty funny. I like when they met the old dude in the woods and he had all these guns and stuff. And brother, he was so nice. It was the same brother, Chris Farley's brother in that movie. It was the same actor that played in Animal House. And it was a good movie. I love that duo, though. That was a great duo. But yeah, no, Tommy Boy is definitely top tier. Also have The Juror, a high stakes legal thriller starring Demi Moore and Alec Baldwin. 96. Moore was at the height of her box office power, and this film was a staple of the paranoid thriller genre popular in the mid 90s. Paranoid thrillers. I don't know too many in the 90s, but apparently it was a fad. TV shows, we have the O.J. Simpson civil trial ongoing. While the criminal trial ended in 1995, the civil trial was dominated news stories this week in 1996, filling the 24-hour news cycle and early tabloid TV shows. You know, it's funny because in 2016, there's also the OJ TV show. 20 years later, they ended up doing a TV show about this case. Pop culture, we have the Macarena. In February 1996, the Macarena craze was officially starting to infect the globe. If you weren't at a party this week 30 years ago, you were almost certainly doing the dance. Well, the Macarena is a fun dance you can do. You can do it all by yourself, just like I'm doing on this podcast, which is cool, you know? Here we are in 1986. We have a movie called Black Sheep again. But this one is a little different than the Chris Farley one because this one is a British comedy drama. And of course, Chris Farley was not in there. I don't think he was quite the big name he was in the 90s. TV shows, we have The State of the Union. This was a somber, historic television event. President Ronald Reagan delivered his address just 1 week after the Challenger space shuttle disaster, famously addressing the 7 heroes in a speech that moved the nation. Oh boy. As far as music, we have The Firm releasing their album Mean Business. This rock supergroup featuring Jimmy Page from Led Zeppelin and Paul Rodgers from Bad Company released their second and final album during this week. That's pretty cool. Like different bands, members like collaborating together and just be like, hey, let's create a little band real quick just for a little bit and, release an album. I wanted to work with you, a collab, back before they had features. They just created whole albums with different people. Chart toppers, the number one song this week 40 years ago was That's What Friends Are For by Dionne Warwick and Friends, while Whitney Houston's How Will I Know was climbing rapidly to its peak. How will I know if he really loves me? That's a good one. I do like that one. Pop culture, 1986, we have Halley's Comet. At the tail end of this week, Halley's Comet reaches its perihelion, which is the closest point to the sun. It was a once-in-a-lifetime scientific event that dominated the news and merchandise in 1986. I hope there's another Halley's Comet in my lifetime, but we'll see. Moving on to 1976, we have the movie Taxi Driver, released February 8th. Martin Scorsese's gritty masterpiece starring Robert De Niro premiered 50 years ago. It defined the lonely man archetype in cinema and remains one of the most influential films ever made. Lonely man, how fitting, because I'm doing this one solo, no guest. But I haven't seen Taxi Driver, but I would definitely give it a shot. I know Martin Scorsese makes a lot of good movies, and Robert De Niro is a great actor. TV shows, we have Rich Man, Poor Man, released February 1st. It was a massive hit for ABC and is credited with launching the miniseries craze of the late 70s. There's also The Honeymooners, The Second Honeymoon, starring Jack Gleason, Audrey Meadow, and Art Carney, reunited in this high-profile ABC special, a major nostalgic event for the viewers of 1976. Wow, that's so interesting. That concept of like them being nostalgic in 1976 when like now we look back at 1976 and that's nostalgic. Even like 2000s nostalgic. Wow, I wonder when the Honeymooners came out. Let's find out. The original Honeymooners released 1955. So yeah, nostalgic normally means about 20 years in the past. We also have the 12th Winter Olympics opening ceremony. This Winter Olympics was taking place in Austria. The rise of Dorothy Hamill, whose gold medal performance and wedge haircut became a global pop cultural phenomenon. Yeah, go Dorothy Hamill. Music, we had Leonard Skinner, Give Me Back My Bullets, released February 2nd. The Southern Rock Legends released their fourth studio album featuring tracks like Double Trouble. It remains a cornerstone of the 70s rock canon. Paul Simon also released his song 50 Ways to Leave Your Lover. The song was the number one song in America during this exact week. Its quirky drum beat and dry wit have kept it in heavy rotation for 5 decades. I don't think I ever seen that one, but the fact that it was released February 1976, 50 Ways to Leave Your Lover, there must have been a hard Valentine's Day that year. But it's a good song by him. David Bowie's Ice Lore Tour. Bowie launched his legendary Thin White Duke tour in Vancouver. This tour is famous for its stark, high contrast lighting and Bowie's cabaret style persona. Yeah, I don't really know what cabaret style means, but I'm pretty sure it means very energetic and very lively. That would be my guess. As far as pop culture, in 1976, we have the Guatemala earthquake. A devastating 7.5 magnitude earthquake struck Guatemala, a major global news event that led to the unprecedented international relief effort. Here we are in 1966. We have Made in Paris, starring Anne Margaret. It remains a time capsule of 1960s fashion and jet set culture. We have Winnie the Pooh and the Honey Tree, released February 4th. This was the very first Disney animated featurette starring Pooh Bear. Music, we have Nancy Sinatra's These Boots Are Made for Walkin'. This song was the anthem of this week 60 years ago. It was rapidly climbing the Billboard Hot 100 and eventually hitting number one, becoming a symbol of the swinging 60s. I don't know what swinging 60s mean. Does that mean they had a lot of swingers back then? I don't know. The whole pineapple upside down in the grocery cart. I didn't know about that till my mom told me. I was just like, that's a thing? And she's like, yeah. I'm like, wow. But also we have the Rolling Stones, 19th Nervous Breakdown. This single captured the frantic, slightly darker energy that the Stones were bringing to the British invasion. Yeah, they were combating the Mersey sound of the Beatles at the time, so I can see it being slightly darker than the Beatles. Birthdays of 1966, we got Chris Rock. Just so you know, we do not all hate you, Chris Rock. We love you. You had a great show. Not everybody hates Chris. Here we are in 1956. We have Invasion of the Body Snatchers, released February 5th, 1956. This sci-fi horror classic had its limited premiere 70 years ago and often interpreted as an allegory for McCarthyism or the Red Scare. It remains one of the most chilling and influential films of the 1950s. I've never seen it, but it might be one to add to my watch list. We also have The Killer is Loose, a tense film noir starring Joseph Cotten and Rhonda Fleming. It's a quintessential example of gritty, low-budget crime thrillers that define the mid-50s cinema landscape. Ooh, Killer is Loose. I mean, that's a great title right there. We have My Friend Flicka, released February 10th. It followed the adventures of a boy and his horse on a Montana ranch. We also had the 1956 Winter Olympics closing ceremony. The 7th Winter Olympics is in Italy again. Okay. This was the first Winter Olympics that was televised internationally, a massive milestone for sports media. As far as games, we have Yahtzee. This legendary dice game was first marketed by game entrepreneur Edwin S. Lowe in 1956. By February 2026, the game will be celebrating 70 years of shaking a cup in the living rooms around the world. You know, I'm probably gonna have a lot of people mad at me, but I've never played Yahtzee. I mean, it's hard, when you got Monopoly right there and Uno and all the other ones, but I know Yahtzee's a classic, especially in 1956. Other board games, we had Racco. Another family staple, this card sorting game was released by Milton Bradley 70 years ago and remains a nostalgic favorite for generations of players. Again, another one I have not played. Pop culture, we have the first disk hard drive. 1956, IBM released the first commercial computer with a hard disk drive, the Ramic 305. While the public didn't have laptops yet, the technology that allows you to store data today is celebrated 70 years. And also the Winter Olympics, still 50 years ago. This was known as the Big Freeze of 1956, causing major disruption, a story that dominated newsreels at the time. One of the coldest winters. Moving on to 1946, movies, we have The Spiral Staircase, released on February 7th. This classic psychological thriller horror film had its wide release 80 years ago. It remains a master class in suspense and shadows, often cited as a precursor to slasher genre. Ooh, one of the I don't. It could be, yeah. 1946 is definitely before Psycho, and I know Psycho's like credited as probably the OG slasher movie, but I'll have to go back a little further to this Spiral Staircase. Music, we have Dr. Lawyer Indian Chief by Betty Hutton. A major hit during this week, this quirky, fast-paced song by the blonde bombshell Betty Hutton captured the playful post-war energy of the country. Here we are in 1936. Movies, we have Modern Times, released February 5th, one of the most significant anniversaries of the year. Charlie Chaplin's masterpiece premiered in New York City 90 years ago. It was the last time Chaplin played his iconic Little Tramp character and remains a definitive satire of the industry age and the Great Depression. I don't think I've ever seen a Charlie Chaplin film. The Petrified Forest, released February 8th, 1936. This film's release marked a massive turning point in Hollywood history. It was the breakout role of Humphrey Bogart, who played a gangster Duke Manty. Bogart's performance was so impactful that it essentially launched his career as the screen's premier tough guy. I agree with that. Yeah, Humphrey Bogart, he's definitely a tough guy. I remember him in Casablanca, and here's to looking at you, kid. He was a tough guy, Rick. I don't know. I love Casablanca. Great movie. Television, we have Suto, the world famous Finnish adventure brand, invented the liquid filled compass. 2026 explorers will be celebrating 90 years of Sunto navigation. Wow. If you ever have a compass, Sunto compass, that'd be cool. It's 90 years old. Also, games. Oh, look at that. I said it earlier. Monopoly, celebrating its 90th anniversary. While Charles Darrow sold the game to Park Brothers in 1935, 1936 was the year of Monopoly craze officially exploded globally. By February 1936, it was the best-selling game in America, turning it to the local novelty into a pop culture icon it is today. Music, we have the Billboard's Hit Parade. Billboard magazine had just begun publishing its first ranked listing of pop music. This week, 2026, marks 90 years since music fans first began obsessively tracking number one hits. Pop culture, we have the fourth Winter Olympics. And this one opened in Germany. It was highly controversial and historically heavy event occurring just before the famous Summer Games of Berlin. Ooh, yeah, that was a crazy one. And here we are in 1926. Movies, we have Greta Garbo's Hollywood debut. This was a massive cinematic milestone 100 years ago. The divine Greta Garbo made her American film debut in Torrent. She became an instant sensation, launching one of the most legendary careers in film history. Wow, go Greta Garbo. We have The Great Gatsby on stage on February 2nd. Exactly 100 years ago this week, the first ever stage adaptation of F. Scott Fitzgerald, The Great Gatsby, premiered at the Ambassador Theater in Broadway. You know what's funny is I'm actually going to go watch The Great Gatsby in theaters at the end of this month on the big screen. I don't think I had caught it on the big screen before, but I'm excited to catch it now. There's also The Shanghai Gesture. This scandalous play opened on Broadway, becoming one of the most talked about and controversial productions of the 1920s due to its gritty depiction of a brothel in Shanghai. Wow. I don't think I've ever heard of that play, but yeah, that would be pretty scandalous in the 1920s. But then again, the flappers were running hot, and there's a definitely a changing culture in the 1920s. For music, we got Bye Bye Blackbird. This quintessential 1920s jazz standard was published and began its rise to fame in 1926. In February 2026, we celebrate the century of this melody defining the Roaring Twenties. Oh, yeah, the Roaring Twenties. I wonder what our 20s would be called if we're not the Roaring Twenties. That's already taken. We'll see. We'll see what the future holds. Also, in pop culture, we have Negro History Week. Historian Carter G. Woodson launched the very first Negro History Week 100 years ago. He chose the second week of February to coincide with the birthdays of Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass. This event was a direct precursor to what we now know as Black History Month. Wow, that's pretty cool. Thank you, Carter G. Woodson. Although I'm glad we don't call it Negro History Week anymore. We just call it Black History Month. And we also have the case of Pancho Villa's skull, February 6, 1926, and a bizarre bit of history that became a long-standing legend. The grave of Mexican revolutionary Pancho Villa was robbed and his skull was stolen. The mystery remains unsolved a century later. Wow. Whoever has the skull of Pancho Villa, please put it back. That's very rude. Moving on to today's releases, we have The Strangers, Chapter 3, Solo Mio. My dad recently watched it. He said it was pretty good. We also have The Rip on Netflix, Relationship Goals, and The President's Cake. As far as TV, we have the Super Bowl, the Seahawks versus Patriots, and those Seahawks killed, of course. Also, the 2026 Winter Olympics ceremony started up in Milano. We also have The Lincoln Lawyer on Netflix, The Burbs on Peacock, starring my girl Kiki Palmer. I haven't seen the original movie of The Burbs with Tom Hanks, but I've always wanted to watch it. And I think I need to watch it now that there's a TV show out there for it. We also had Bloodflower and The Muppet Show making a resurrection on Disney Plus. Go Muppets. Video games, we have My Hero Academia, All Justice, Super Bomberman, Tomb of Bloodletter, and Dragon Quest VII. As far as music, we have Don Toliver's album Octane. Ella May released New Project. And DaBaby released his album Be More Grateful. And that's about it for our show. Thank you for listening. And if you would prefer to hear another voice other than mine, please let me know and be a guest. All right. Thank you. And have a good one.